I would like to call the Richland County Council regular session meeting to order. First items we have is the invocation and pledge of allegiance, the Honorable Bill Malinowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As usual with me, I don't ask for bowing of heads or whatever. It's a heads-up deal, and you can just listen, and that's it, and draw your own conclusions. And that is that what I'd like to say is that God has made us all different, peculiar. Some are real peculiar, but that's fine, and we're not going to throw any names out here. But we should never think of ourselves as too common or too small, too young, too old, and least of all, not too insignificant to matter to someone else. Even the most poor among us is blessed compared to most people, or I should say maybe many people, in other parts of the world today. So we have a great advantage there. But there's one thing that makes every one of us equal. I'm not going to ask for answers, that might take too long. But the answer is time. We're all given the exact same amount of time every day of our lives. Nobody gets any more than that, 24 hours in a day. So let's all make an effort to do the best that we can. Maybe do something, at least one thing daily that is for the benefit of someone else, to be kind to them, to act charitable, and not waste the time that God has given us, but be productive with all the time that we have been given. If you please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to have a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Malinowski. Ms. Dickerson.
Okay, I wanna thank the organizers, Kim and Miss Monique McDaniels, for putting on one of the most awesome summits in the world. We had 2 full days of a summit with our youth, and we had so much youth participation. Hearing from them, they were just awesome and phenomenal. And we had people in school districts represented from all over the state of South Carolina. And I want to thank all of the organizers and all of the participants, and we're just hoping that next year it'll be so awesome and that much bigger. Maybe we'll do it for a week, because the children are that important. They are our future. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Ms. Dickerson. And great job on that project.
It was
as well.
just good.
All right, next we have presentations of proclamation, Employee Safety Week proclamation. A proclamation recognizing the week of June 20th through June 24th, 2016 as Employee Safety Week. Whereas the workplace accidents and illness resulted in the injury or death of 722,728 state and local government employees last year in the United States. And whereas the month of June is designated as National Safety Month throughout the United States of America and its territories. And whereas the National Safety Council endorses National Safety Month as the opportunity for employers to focus on reducing the leading causes of injury, death at work through awareness and education. And whereas Employee Safety Week and associated safety programs raise awareness, provide quality training and information, and foster an active safety culture. Now, therefore, it be proclaimed that Torrey Rush, District 7, and Richland County Council do hereby proclaim the week of June 20th through 24th, 2016 as Employee Safety Week in Richland County, South Carolina, in conjunction with the National Safety Month, and accordingly encourage Richland County employees to participate in Employee Safety Week. Signed and sealed, this 7th day of June 2016 by the Chairman Tory Rush and Deputy Clerk Michelle Owen. Well, congratulations. All right, would you like to?
Thank you. I'm Brittany Hoyle, Risk Manager. This is Tamara Rodriguez, the County Safety Manager. And we'd like to thank you, Chairman Rush, and members of Council for your support of Employee Safety Week, and also for your continued commitment to the safety and health of all Richland County employees. And we'd also like to thank Daniel Driggers and our administrators for their support of Safety Week as well. Thank you.
I don't even see that item on the minutes. But student housing. I don't think it was last meeting. I think it's already.
Okay, the next proclamation is the resolution for Lake Murray. Mr. Malinowski.
Ms. Dixon and Mr. Manning.
Dickerson. I don't know what he said, but you know, you just come on in here, so it doesn't matter. You said Dickerson?
That's student housing. It won't have been. How can it be on?
I didn't see it.
This is
All right.
I don't see it.
You ready? Okay, this is a resolution for the Capital City Lake Murray Country Regional Tourism Board celebrating 35 years of service. Whereas I'm going to abbreviate some of this, whereas the Tourism Board, established in 1981, has generated over $941 million in revenues, tourism revenues for the state, and uses an average of 49% of that budget directly to marketing tourism. The organization's mission is to promote tourism and the region's great outdoors for Richland, Lexington, Newberry, and Saluda counties, and to market and promote special events that will bring visitors into the region. They established the brand name of Lake Murray Country, Jewel of South Carolina, in 1983 in its marketing and promotional efforts, and that still is their logo today. They've been the recipient of numerous awards from the 2015 Economic Impact Sports Tourism for generating almost $26 million in economic impact, from the 2014 Forest Wood Cup. That's a fishing tournament if you don't know what it is, with 43,000 out-of-town visitors from 40 states, along with a statewide barbecue competition and outdoor show. And that particular event also was shown worldwide on the sports channels. Over the years, the region has been featured on numerous special shows, and the organization has had full-page ads in national and regional tourism and travel publications, including such magazines and publications as USA Today, Hunt and Fish, Bass Magazine, Southern Living, Good Housekeeping, and Sports Destination. Boating magazine named Lake Murray as the best place to boat and live in the U.S. in 2012. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Councilman Bill Malinowski, District 1, Councilman Jim Manning, District 8, and Councilwoman Julianne Dixon, District 9, and Councilwoman Joyce Dickerson, District 2, with Richland County Council, wish to congratulate the Capital City Lake Murray Country Regional Tourism Board for 35 years of outstanding service to Richland County, the Midlands, and beyond.
Yeah, and may I add, Bill Malinowski and we participated in one of those fishing tournaments.
We did.
And he beat me by how many pounds?
Oh, several pounds.
No, it wasn't several.
Hey, it's a fishing story, right? Wait, she's going to get a picture first.
Oh, okay.
About a fish.
That's fine.
We know you caught the biggest fish. We know that. We know that.
Fish, but I didn't have enough.
It was a catfish in a straight tournament.
Photo bomb.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
We made it.
Briefly, again, thank you, Chairman Tory Rush and members of Richland County Council. You know, we are blessed to have a wonderful tourism diverse product to promote. So we really need to thank somebody higher up above for that. But we always want to come and let you know about the business yet to be. We have many more large tournaments coming, and on March 31st, to continue our efforts to be diverse, we have booked the International Federation of Black Bass Anglers as 250 fishermen and their ladies and gentlemen coming to Lake Murray. And that's going to be in September of 2017. We also have just booked 350 golfers coming from Canada. They will be coming August of 2018 to play at Cobblestone, Windermere, and one more course. They'll be here for 5 days, and we lured them through the marketing efforts, I believe, that were supported through Council Member Joyce Dickerson. So that's our golf marketing efforts for the year. We have booked $300,000 in business from golfers into Richland County. Just some tidbits of what we're doing. Thanks for the recognition. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Malinowski and other council members.
I'm sticking to it. That's my stuff.
Okay, next we have the approval of the minutes, regular session, March 17th, 2016. Chair entertain a motion. Mr. Manning.
I'd like to move the approval of the minutes, removing from page 8, items E and F, which make reference to what were agenda items 18A and 18B,
E and F.
for us to approve those minute items at our next regularly scheduled council meeting.
Okay. Can I get a second to that?
Second.
It's been properly second. Mr. Livingston.
Mr. Chair, reference item, I'm on page 13 of economic development. I had committed to some individuals that I would meet with them prior to us taking up this item today, but I was unable to. And that is an item authorizing expansion in the boundaries of I-77 Quarter Region Industrial Park, jointly developed with Fairfield County to include certain real properties located in Richland County, special source revenue credits to Haven Campus Communities, LL. My motion, Mr. Chair, is for us to defer that until our next meeting, so I have an opportunity to meet with those individuals that I was not able to meet with.
I'm sorry, just to save you a few words, a point of clarity. In Mr. Manning's motion, it captures that one.
Yeah.
F.
It's in 17.
Okay?
Thank you.
Any more discussion?
Point of clarification, Mr. Chairman. So the
Pierce.
motion is to approve all the minutes except that one item, defer
Those
that
two
one item to
items,
the next.
E and F.
The two items to the next meeting.
Yes. Okay? Any more discussion? Okay, all in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Division. All in favor of that motion signify by raising your hand.
In favor, Rose, Jackson, Rush, Livingston, Manning, Jeter.
All opposed?
My hand's up too.
Dickerson.
All opposed, like sign.
That's a good.
All opposed, like sign.
Malinowski, Pierce.
Okay, that motion
That's
carries.
incomplete, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry?
I don't think that's a complete vote.
Anyone who didn't raise their hand is under.
They're in force. Yeah,
I mean, yeah. You don't have to vote.
you don't have to. Parliamentary. What's a no vote?
they would be counted in the affirmative if they don't vote.
On a show of hands?
Yeah,
Well, yeah.
on a vote, yeah or nay. I mean, that could be by the show of hands, could be by voice vote.
Put them in the affirmative.
All right. That motion carries. Next item, item 6, special call meeting, March 24th, 2016. Chair, entertain a motion. Got a motion for approval. It's
Second.
been properly second. Any discussion? All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Next item, item 7, zoning public hearing, May 24th, 2016. Got a motion for approval. It's been properly second. Any discussion? All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Next, we have the adoption of the agenda. Chair, entertain a motion. Got a motion for approval. It's been properly second. Mr. Malinowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Page 5 of our agenda, item number 31, under the report of the Office of Small Business Opportunity Ad Hoc Committee. It's my understanding that there was not a quorum to hold that meeting, so I don't understand how anything can be here from that committee.
Right.
I got you.
Mr.
All
Chair.
right, one moment, one
Therefore,
moment.
I'm
one moment.
asking if it is properly before us or we should remove it.
Remove it.
Give me one moment. Mr. Manning and then Mr. Jackson.
Just as a point of clarification from that ad hoc committee meeting, indeed, the committee did not have a quorum to take official action. As a result, with the consent and advice of our attorney, we were told that if 3 members of council requested that items be pulled from the committee to the council agenda. So these aren't actually coming from the committee. There were 3 members of council who requested that these items be put onto the council agenda, being pulled out of the committee.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
In other
Manning.
words, they weren't pushed here from the committee. They've been pulled by 3 council members to the council agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Manning. Mr. Jackson.
Yes,
I'll come back.
Clarification.
All right.
there was not a quorum, and we did have the meeting. No action was taken, and Mr. Manning carefully asked the attorney what our next move was, and that's why it's on the agenda now. So it was well thought of, and by the held a discussion, people showed up for the meeting, and we're just informing council what we discussed.
And I would say we did get verification from staff as relates to this item being on the agenda. But I've got you, Mr. Malinowski.
Well, and that's what I would like to know. What staff member received the 3 names and who were they and how was it received?
Who put it on?
Well, I can tell you that. It was Miss Ann Chetta, and the 3 members were Councilman Jackson, Councilman Jeter, and myself, and that was communicated to her by me.
By what?
By me.
By you. All right, well, as far as Mr. Jackson saying that they held the meeting anyway, 4.5, Rule 4.5, Mr. Parliamentarian, of our rules under meetings, it says no committee shall sit unless a quorum is present. Therefore, they couldn't even sit and discuss anything, so there couldn't be a meeting. No. And now I will refer you to 1.7 of our council rules under agenda. It's 1.7B where it says placing on the agenda. Number 2, any item defeated, tabled, or not acted on by a committee within 90 days of that item having been placed on the committee's agenda may be placed on the council agenda when the clerk's office has received a written request signed by 3 members of council. So if our clerk's office can show us we've received a written request, I'll be more than happy to accept this as being proper before us. But other than that, if we've got rules, we need to follow them.
Thank you.
I'm sure she can look for it.
One moment. Thank you, Mr. Malinowski. Did you want to speak to that, Mr.?
Yes. The information that I gave to administration when I was asked this question related to exactly what you just said, Mr. Malinowski, which is that whenever an item is not reported out by committee, and in this case, there was no report done, but it appeared on the committee's agenda, it can be placed on the council agenda when the clerk's office has received a written request signed by 3 members of council, not less than 24 hours prior to the scheduled meeting. Now, when I was asked this question, of course, I wasn't aware of how it was being communicated to the clerk's office. I simply gave them what the rules said, so.
So did our clerk's office receive a written request by 3 council members?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Dickerson.
And the other fact of this particular matter is that we don't have the items before us, even though if you brought them here tonight, I don't know how we could actually take action on. So I wouldn't dare take action on an item that I did not have an opportunity to review prior to this meeting.
Well, these items are part of the agenda, is that correct? Okay, they are on the agenda.
But not like it's coming out of the report.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Ms. Dickerson. Mr. Jeter.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. Where in our rules, I understand standing committees and how things can move from standing committees, but for ad hoc committees, I don't know if the rule addresses ad hoc committees, because unless I'm incorrect, we may need to make it clear. But ad hoc committees are really set up for discussion of items, and they only bring recommendations. They don't necessarily take any action as a standing committee. I'm not trying to confuse things, but how does it apply? How do the rules apply to ad hoc committees?
Mr. Jeter, I don't think that your rules make a distinction between the standing committees and ad hoc committees in terms of how they function. I think the practice over time has been that whatever committees are established, there are certain reports and or recommendations that come out of those committees. And of course, the council is free to either accept those reports as recommendations or reject those reports. At the final analysis, it would be up to the body to make the final decision as a council. So basically, that's the way it's functioned over time, but your rules itself, I don't think, make a distinction between standing committees and ad hoc committees.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Jeter. Mr. Malinowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just submit that the fact that these rules, council rules, have not been followed, that the agenda be approved without number 31 on it, and we just move that to the next council meeting.
That's the motion on the table. And that, well, being that it wasn't the way this item was presented as relates to a written notification, I think it was verbal.
Well, Mr. Chair.
It's not properly before us, so we can actually strike it from the agenda. Okay, Mr. Mellon, Mr.
Did you make the motion, Mr. Mellon?
No, I struck it from the agenda. Mr. Manning.
Mr. Chairman, I move for unanimous consent that we set aside the rules and proceed with this being on the agenda as was sent out with the backup material.
Second.
Got a motion for unanimous consent to add this item to the agenda. Any more discussion? All in favor of that motion signify by raising your hand.
In favor, Rose, Dixon, Jackson, Pierce, Rush, Manning, Jeter.
All opposed?
Opposed, Malinowski, Livingston, Dickerson.
That motion fails. Thank you, Mr. Now the chair entertain a motion for adoption of the agenda without item, was it 31?
Yeah.
Without item 31. Chair entertain a motion. Chair entertain a motion.
Move approval of the agenda
Got a motion
as amended.
for approval. It's been properly second. Any discussion? All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Next, we have the report of the attorney for executive session items. Mr. Smith.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, we have item 9A, Department of Revenue update. Item 9B, Pinewood Lake, that's a contractual matter. Under the report of the chair, personnel matter, that item also qualifies for executive session. Item 25D, Lower Richland Sewer Project land acquisition. That's also a contractual matter. And item 32, which is update of the dirt road management contract. That's a contractual matter. So those items qualify for executive session, Mr. Chairman and members of council. And we don't have any outside counsel tonight, so those items can be taken up at the end of the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Did we get the item out of, is that for executive session? The item out of healthcare, is that for executive session as well?
No, I don't.
Okay.
We can present that in public.
That's open?
That's
Okay.
public.
All right, just wanted to make sure. All right, thank you, Mr. Smith. Next, we have the citizens' input for items on the agenda not requiring a public hearing. We have one citizen signed up to speak, Mr. Tony Mazzell. Mr. Mazzell, if you can come forward, state your name and address for the record, and you have up to 2 minutes to speak.
Tony Mazzell, 106 Wembley Street, Columbia, SC 29209. Mr. Chairman, honorable members of council, I'm here to speak on behalf of Dennis Corporation and let you know that they are committed to delivering quality roads to Richland County and working with council and staff to meet and exceed all benchmarks and expectations. Dennis has a 2-year contract to complete 140 roads, and that contract runs through May of 2017. We have just finished year 1 of that 2-year contract. What I want to let you know is we started this contract working vertically. Engineering a dirt road is a very multifaceted process, and there are like 6 steps you have to go through before you're at 100% completion. So the way we started is we actually went through all 144 roads doing consent and denial before we went to survey. Then we surveyed all the roads, then went to preliminary, and then started right away. So the point is, a lot of work has been done over the past year. Now, recently, county staff has instructed us that they would like us to move more horizontally. And what I mean by that, instead of taking right away all the way through completion and then going to final and taking that, we're going to take out like 12 roads, take those to 100% completion so we can get those out to bid faster. Then we'll take another 12 and another 12. So at the end of the program, we won't have 144 roads. We'll be paving as we're moving through during this 2-year contract. Dennis has tripled its engineering staff, and all of these resources are working on the Richland County Dirt Road Program in order to successfully meet and exceed program objectives and requirements. We respectfully request that County Council table this issue and revisit it in 6 months when the next performance evaluation is due. At that time, you can receive a status report, and if we're doing a good job, we're going to ask you for years 3 and 4 of that program. If not, then County Council can decide how they want to move forward. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mandel. That concludes our citizens' input. Next, we have the report of the county administrator.
No report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Next, we have the report of the clerk of council.
Yes, sir. I only have one item, and that's a reminder of third reading of the budget, which is Thursday night at 6 p.m.
Okay. Have a
Chairman,
question?
I asked a question about the clerk's report on that item.
Yes, sir.
On the hospitality tax, the portion to where we allocated the 164 plus, I'd asked a question, I've not gotten the answer, but I would like to get the answer. Just as in the past, how council collectively has set aside, like last year was 25,000, sort of as a contingency for something that comes up later. The question I posed to finance, I've not gotten an answer on, is can any or all, if desired, council members hold a portion of that money aside for something that may come up over the year, with that being undesignated at this time.
Okay. You want that question for the clerk or for
Well, it's
finance?
under her report, so it seemed to me like the only time I had an opportunity to ask a question.
Okay.
And I'm fine,
Well,
you know, to get it later.
yeah.
Just since I asked for it and hadn't got it, it seemed like I do it on TV. So I could,
Okay.
make sure
You got
we get
that?
something done, because
Okay.
that's the way we do transparency
We'll follow.
and accountability in our county.
We'll follow up
As I
on that.
recall it. Yes, sir.
There you go.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Manning. You good, Mr. Judah? All right, that concludes your report.
Completes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Only. Next, we have the report of the chair. I do have one item. Well, I've got two items, a personnel item and then the economic development China Jushi item. Just want to applaud our Economic Development Office, our Economic Development Committee, also council and staff on a job well done. This is a big deal for Richland County when you start talking about a $300 million initial investment, 400 jobs, then ramping up to a $400 million investment over 5 years and 800 jobs in a 5-year period. That's a big deal for Richland County, and I think not only staff and everyone who worked so diligently on making sure this came to fruition, but the county deserves a round of applause for that big announcement. And that concludes my report. Next, we have open and close of public hearing. Item 14, authorizing the conversion of 1996 fee in lieu of ad valorem taxes arrangement by and between Richland County, South Carolina, and Bose Corporation and other matters related thereto. That public hearing is open. No one signed up to speak. That public hearing is now closed. Next item we have is the approval of the consent items, items 15 through 22. Chair, entertain a motion.
So moved, Mr.
Got
Chair.
a motion for approval. It's been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. I'm trying to wake y'all up. Come on. All right. Third reading items. Item 23, authorizing the conversion of 1996 fee in lieu of ad valorem taxes arrangement by and between Richland County, South Carolina, and Bose Corporation and other matters related thereto. Chair, entertain a motion.
So moved, Chair.
Got a motion for approval. It's been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor of that motion signify by raising your hand.
In favor, Rose, Malinowski, Dixon, Jackson, Pierce, Rush, Livingston, Dickerson, Manning, Jeter.
All opposed, like sign. That motion carries. Next, we have the report of the Administration and Finance Committee. Mr. Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 24 is the magistrate's authorization to purchase 144 O'Neill Court. Someone had a question about this. That's the only reason it was moved forward with. Do you?
Yep, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Pierce, I believe this was not a consent item
Correct.
because Judge Simons, the Chief Magistrate, was not at the meeting to answer questions, but he is here tonight.
I don't know who had the question.
I think I had the question
All right.
because Judge was not here, and now I have gotten my answer to that question, so I can vote in favor of going forward with this
All
item.
right, so it was recommended for approval, although it was not unanimous.
Right.
Okay.
You heard the committee's recommendation. Any discussion? Mr. Malinowski.
Yeah, I've got some questions, but I was not on the committee, and Judge Simon wasn't there to answer, so there's no point asking. But right now, who found this property to begin with?
Judge, if you can come forward
Yeah.
and state your and state your name and position, please.
Judge Simons, Richland County, Eastover District. Yes, sir.
First question is, who found the property that we're talking about purchasing?
If I'm not mistaken, the realtor that we've been working with located the property. on O'Neill Court.
When you say that we've been working with it, I'm trying to find out, did our procurement department work with you and/or the realtor on this?
No, this is the same realtor that I met.
The answer is no.
No, I met him
Yes or no question.
through our former county manager. He directed me to work with him on another piece of property when we were looking at a location for Blythewood, and I continued to work with him.
Mr. McDonald, do we have a set of rules that are to be followed in the procurement of properties?
Mr. Malinowski, I'm not aware of a formal set of rules for purchasing property. A lot of the purchases depend on the circumstances like this. Property, for example, has to be at or within a certain parameter of a location because it has to be in the magisterial district that it's going to serve. So those kinds of issues come into play, but as far as any other formal requirements for purchasing property, I'm not aware of any, no.
Yeah, I thought that this council had previously said that when it comes to purchasing property, we want to work through a real estate agent with the county so that our interest is not made known publicly until the deal is closed.
You did, and and we did work through an agent on this one, and Judge Simons worked with administration and in particular quite a bit with one of the assistant administrators. So yes, there was that communication, and I think that process
What was the asking price for the property?
I don't know. Chad Forsythe was working with the agent also. He was the one that was heavily involved, so I don't know the price or anything. I never got into it.
Mr. McDonald, does anybody on staff here know what that is?
I don't have that, Mr. Malinowski.
Kevin Bronson, Assistant County Administrator. Mr. Malinowski, I do not know what the asking price was, but if you will refer to your documents, the property appraised for the contract price.
Well, I understand that. I read this. I didn't want you to get up and tell me you don't know the asking price. I don't know the asking price either. That's why I asked the question. It says the property appraisal has been completed on the site. Who did that appraisal? Richland County, the seller, somebody else that we know?
They hired an independent appraisal, if it's my understanding, to do the appraisal. Like I said, Chad Forsythe handled all of this. I mean, he was the one.
So basically, all my questions still can't be answered tonight then because we keep pointing fingers at somebody that's not here.
I got you, Mr. Jackson. Okay.
Well, how about over here under the finance comment, page 95 of our agenda, where it says that approximately 100,000 additional funds are included in the FY17 recommendation for building maintenance and upkeep. If we're spending $410,000 to purchase a building, $347,000 to renovate a building, why would we need another $100,000 for building maintenance and upkeep?
Well,
we just built it new.
I will say, Mr. Malinowski, that's not an uncommon practice to have deferred maintenance on a building. Our buildings, I don't think anybody from our buildings department is here, but having a maintenance plan for a building, even if it's brand new, is not an uncommon practice. And also with the using of a real estate, that's not necessarily an uncommon practice as well. That's been done on several projects, even as of recent with the county.
Well, we're spending over $750,000, and then we're going to put another $100,000 in it in case something's not done right. We've even got a contingency in here. What's the normal contingency for these types of projects? What percentage?
Is this a contract to another?
I don't think so.
Is there a normal percentage that we give to somebody for a contingency?
Again, Mr. Malinowski, it depends on the type of contract that you're talking about. Usually it's anywhere from 5 to 10%, I believe. So yes, but they're
And this one's only a little over 13%. So again, we're out of our parameters on that one.
and I'm not saying that's the top. I'm saying that's typical. But yes, it could be as high as even 15%. Yes.
Mr. Chair, as chair of the A&F committee, could I ask for a point of clarification? Mr. McDonald, is this an absolutely time-sensitive matter? Can we postpone it one meeting?
I think we can, Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
unless Judge Simons tells me differently.
Rather than us continue along this way, Mr. Malinowski,
that's fine.
I would recommend Mr. Fosnight.
We'll get with him. I'll get with him.
This entire matter was handled according to how we do with every other piece of property.
That's right.
So, but if it would be, I'd just defer it one meeting and let Mr. Fosnight, if you want to.
Yeah, I've just got one other question here, if I could, right now then. And it tells us in here that the appraisal for the property was valued at the amount agreed to in the purchase agreement. Now, we've got a purchase agreement already in place, is the way I read that, but it hasn't been approved by this council yet. So how can that be?
There is no any agreement, Mr. Malinowski, that would have been initiated to this point would be contingent, like we always do,
Okay.
on council
Just
approval.
the way it was worded here, I did. Mr. Pierce, if you want, go ahead and vote. You've got the votes for this anyway, I believe.
Okay.
So that's fine.
Thank you, Mr. Mellon.
You had me too.
You're good. Thank you, Mr. Malinowski.
Okay.
Next, I have Mr. Jackson.
For the motion.
No,
You didn't carry the motion.
no. Listen.
I'm just clarifying the motion.
One moment.
The motion is to approve.
The motion is for approval, and that's the committee's recommendation. I don't need a second for that. That's the committee's recommendation. You done, Mr. Malinowski? Mr. Jackson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And first, I think, Mr. Malinowski, your what you say is uncalled for, that you already have the vote, because I'm making my decision based on a common practice by the county. Mr. McDonald, has every procedure been followed in this process?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Jackson, yes, to my knowledge, every procedure that we have typically followed with property purchases have been followed. And I would also point out this is this purchase, and if this goes forward, this property is part of the county's long-term plan to relocate magistrate's offices from county or leased space to county-owned facilities. That plan began several years ago under at least the former administrator, maybe even two administrators ago. We've been doing that bonding money at the rate of $1.6 million every other year to fund it. And this is just the next step in that process and in that plan. So that this is, again, part of a long-term plan to relocate magistrates into county facilities. And I would say the Dennisville magistrate, which this will house if this goes forward, is currently housed temporarily at Hugie Street. He was relocated from Decker Center when we purchased and are now renovating that building. So we need a long-term solution and a long-term facility for the Dennisville Magistrate in the Dennisville Magistrate's jurisdiction. So whether it's this one or not, I don't know, but we do need to resolve that issue within the next few months, because again, Decker Center will be opening in the fall, and the plan after that is to no longer maintain Hugie Street. So we need a long-term solution, and this is what we've come up with.
All right. Mr. Jackson, you still have the floor.
No, I have no further questions.
Thank you. Ms. Dickerson?
And I'm going to say this is the same, are we being televised tonight? Because we're getting a lot of press tonight. So anyhow, this is the same procedure that we followed with the Blythewood facility. And that's why I was really in support of it once I got all the information, because we're following the exact same procedures. Now, we've done some properties up in Lake Murray that didn't go through all this rigmarole and all this talk. So I'm just saying right now, tonight, we need to do what we need to do and take care of this business. And I'm going to call for the question.
Thank you, Mr. Dickerson.
You call for the question?
You got a motion to call for the question. It's been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. So the motion is for approval. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item, Mr. Pierce.
Item 25, this is the item that you asked to be forwarded without recommendation.
That's it.
This is an
Yes.
executive session item.
Yes.
And so that would be moved to executive session. That concludes our report.
Thank you, Mr. Pierce. Next, we have rules and appointments. Mr. Malinowski.
Board of the Rules and Appointment Committee, Mr. Chair. Items number, notification of vacancies. That would be items 26A through G. The committee recommends to advertise for those vacancies.
You heard the committee's recommendation. Any discussion? All in favor of that recommendation signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Mr. Malinowski.
Item number 27, Community Relations Council. 3 vacancies, 1 applicant. After interview, the committee recommends to appoint Gardner L. Johnson.
You heard the committee's recommendation. Any discussion? All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Mr. Malinowski.
Mr. Malinowski, the committee,
What's that?
what about the other 2?
Other 2.
We only had 1 applicant. The other 2 are being re-advertised.
That's what I'm getting at.
Right.
Mr. Malinowski.
Item number 28A. That one is being kept in committee till the maker of the motion can get with the legal division and explain more clearly exactly what he is trying to achieve with this motion so they can come back with proper language to address it. Item number 28B. We have, and that's also being held in committee, and the administration is going to be asked what must be done when the grievance committee reports an item out to them so that we can come up with an actual time frame that it gets to council, because too many times we're seeing items at the council level that are 6 months to a year or longer since the grievance committee recommendation. So that's also held in committee, and that completes my report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Malinowski. Next, we have the report of the Blue Ribbon Committee. Item 29A. The Blue Ribbon Committee met on May 19th, 2016. A copy of the PowerPoint presentation is in your committee or in your agenda packages. The committee received an update on the status of the federal funds applied for through the 2 agencies for various projects that will assist with the flood recovery. The Hazard Mitigation Grant Program and the Flood Mitigation Assistance. These 2 items were status updates only, no actions was taken. Item 2, the Blue Ribbon Committee unanimously recommended the County Council consider and approve the adoption of the following 11 project categories, priorities for the CDBG DR funding. This list will serve as the guiding criteria in the development and implementation plan of action plan and project development plan that must be submitted as part of the CDBG DR funding process. That ranking is the item 1 through 11, residential / non-residential construction, rehabilitation, and relocation. Item 2, voluntary residential property acquisition and buyouts. Item 3, stormwater drainage management. Item 4, voluntary non-residential property acquisition and buyouts. Item 5, data and offsite IT infrastructure. Item 6, flood studies. Item 7, economic resilience. And item 8, mitigation of flood damage to fire suppression, water capacity systems. Item 9, conservation easements. Item 10, public outreach. And item 11, stream restoration and debris removal. So that's the committee's recommendation, is for approval of those items. Mr. Malinowski.
Just clarification, Mr. Chair, that's on page 107. Those are the 11 items we're voting on.
Yes.
Okay.
So moved.
Okay, that's the committee's recommendation. Any more discussion? All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. And that concludes the report of the Blue Ribbon Committee. Next, we have the report of the Decker Center Ad Hoc Committee. Mr. Manning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
couple things I want to highlight coming out of the committee, that the Decker Center project is approximately $2.66 million under budget.
Is that?
As a move-in date, wait a minute, did I read that right? Yep, under budget, $2.66 million under budget.
Don't make me go there.
Did I read that right?
I just said, don't make me go there.
Don't bring that up.
Move-in
there alone.
Move-in date around mid-November of this year.
Thanksgiving dinner.
We have before us, as you see in the agenda, personnel requests that the committee looked at. The committee reviewed the requested staffing from the Sheriff's Department, 16 positions at $939,943. Court Administration, 6 positions, $252,900. Facilities and Grounds, 2 positions at $63,521. The county administrator has included funding for all these positions for 9 months in the FY17 recommended budget that will be taken up third reading on Thursday. The reason 9 months is because of the move-in date. However, per the committee, while the requests have merit, the number of positions requested we felt like needed on, let me say we did have a quorum present. The positions requested needs to be slightly reduced without recommendations to which ones and how many.
What's your committee's recommendation, Mr. Manning?
The committee without recommendation.
Okay.
However, we did not feel like we could recommend all the positions. If you were there, you would know that primarily the concerns we had were item B with the court administration for 3 full-time data entry specialists. These are additional positions. And 3 full-time summary court law clerks. So we could not come up with a recommendation on which positions and how many of those not to have, but the committee did feel like if we're fully operating the magistrate's court now and have been, that just to move to a new location requires 6 new full-time positions. We just didn't feel like that seemed quite right, and we could not come up as a committee to determine how many less than 6 that we would want to recommend to council, or which ones of those. So that's here without recommendation.
Okay.
And then there's another item, but if you want to
Yeah,
take them up
let's,
separately,
if
we
we'll,
can do that.
yeah, we'll take them separately.
All right.
Chair entertain the motion. Mr. Jeter.
Yeah, I think Mr. Manning may have answered. Sorry. Mr. Manning alluded to maybe the answer. So these are new positions.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Okay, can I get a motion? Chair entertain the motion.
That just came out the committee's
There
recommendation.
was no recommendation.
Oh, he did. Well, he can.
Yeah.
Well, I'll make a motion, and this has nothing to do with me on the committee because
Do it.
it's come out of the committee, so this is not me committee member, this is me District 8. I would move that we proceed with all the positions for the Sheriff's Department, for the 2 positions with Facilities and Grounds, and that we proceed with 3 of the 6 positions and allow the court administration to determine whether they want them to be the 3 summary court law clerks, whether they want them to be 3 data entry specialists, whether they want 2 of this and 1 of these, or 1 of these and 2 of these, but that we approve 3 of the 6 and allow them to determine the makeup of the 3 of the 6 requests.
Okay, you heard the motion on the table. Can I get a second? It's been properly second. Discussion, Mr. Livingston.
Mr. Manager, do you know whether or not there's a big difference between the salaries of the summary law clerk and the other position? Or?
You know, I don't know your definition of a big difference. It's $100.
Okay.
Well,
that's good. Thank you.
Yeah, 100 between the 3, so really kind of $37 per position.
Okay.
All right. Thank
you.
You still have the floor, Mr. Livingston.
I'm good.
Thank you, Mr. Livingston. Mr. Jackson.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Manning, this is a larger facility. Am I correct?
That is correct.
Are there more courts or will be in that facility?
I don't know to answer that question. There aren't additional judge positions.
Okay, the judges' positions. So the facility will accommodate more staff. It's bigger. It's going to accommodate more staff, handle more cases.
I don't think so. I mean, I think the magistrate court in Richland County is handling all the cases now. So I think the number of cases being handled by the magistrate will be the same. I don't think we're not having cases.
Okay. No, the reason why I asked, I did a tour of the facility and I saw these offices. It's larger. I was told it can accommodate more, and they didn't have places to hold detainees and transfer them, and it's just a larger facility to do a lot more. I'm hoping. And I'm not sure if from the consultants or from the experts whoever makes those recommendations about the staff that will be needed to run this place effectively. So that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, no, that's a good question, Councilman Jackson. When we, at the committee, when we looked at the layout of the building, it did look like with where entrances were going to be and where they may need some people, it did look like they probably needed 3 new people to kind of keep an eye on the different access points. The fact that the same number of judges are there, why we need 3 new law clerks, to me, in the presentation was kind of difficult for me to understand how if a judge is on UG Street and a judge moves to Decker, that they need more law clerks. So that's why my motion was, in looking at the new layout, the larger building, it did look like there were 3 areas, because where they are now, there's only really one way to come into that building, and that the deputy is now sort of the guardian of that door. And it does look like there will be 3 access points to where one of these clerks would be sitting at a desk and would be able to buzz people in and out.
Thank you. I just cautious because for safety and because it's a larger building, listening to the requests or the report from the consultants that it may be necessary to have these positions.
Yes, sir, Mr. Councilman. I would say safety is addressed by the Sheriff's Department, and that these folks would be more about buzzing access than actual safety, because they're not going to have guns. And honestly, if you're not a gun-carrying agent like at a Sheriff's Department or some other public safety official, then you're really not providing a safety function.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Mr. Malinowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councilman Manning, you've got the benefit of all that information in front of you. So, and did you say that we're going to be voting on this Thursday? Is the final vote for it at budget time?
The positions are in the budget. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So I
Because,
guess,
again,
yeah,
our rules
that's
say that
true.
we're supposed to have all this in front of us on any actions coming here, and we don't. So I'm hard pressed to support it at this point in time, but I'd like to have all that information before Thursday so I can review it at that point in time. Before then, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malinowski. Mr. Pierce.
First of all, let me assure everybody that safety was the #1 concern. That's right. There was never any question that every single Sheriff's Department person that was recommended has been put into the building. where we got confused, and if you notice, we didn't make a recommendation because it is a new building, all right? And until they get in that building and we see how it works with that building, it's sort of hard with some of these positions to know whether they are necessary or not. So I think what Mr. Manning is doing is splitting the difference, saying, okay, yes, we realize that we need these 3 positions. We don't know whether we need 6. And considering the financial situation of where we are with things, I think we would have been, since we had all these questions that we did not know how to answer, that we would err on the side of possibly, at least my feeling is, that we err on the side of not putting them there right now. Let's get into the building. If it's absolutely necessary, we can always put them in later, rather than go. We've tried so hard to keep this building within budget, to get it under, in there, and something that we can be proud of, but that people wouldn't say, well, you've done this and done that. And so we're trying to keep it at a reasonable level. And then, so until we get in the building, I would not be for fully staffing at this time.
Okay. Any more discussion?
But just, if I could add one other thing, Mr. Malinowski is right. I mean, we're voting tonight on a recommendation. It's in the budget, so the final vote is going to be Thursday night. I kind of quite why are we voting tonight anyway? If it's in the
Mr.
we're hearing the report of the committee.
It came
which
out
is a recommendation.
It came out. It was reported out of committee to the council. I think to discuss tonight. The funding itself is in the budget and will be voted on Thursday when you give final reading to the budget.
So can we use this as information only?
Yeah. All right. So let's do this. I'll withdraw my motion.
All right.
Let's do this for information only, that the committee is recommending only 3 of the 6 new full-time positions requested by the summary court administration. All right, so then moving on, the vehicle and small capital request. Committee reviewed the small capital equipment, computers, phones, other office equipment, vehicles for the sheriff, et cetera, that can be funded through the project funds. And of course, this too is just recommendation for consideration for Thursday night in the final budget. Is the committee did recommend that the small capital equipment needed for the new center to be funded in the amount as requested of $278,161 from the existing Decker Center funds.
But you did say, I'm sorry, Mr. Manning, you did say that was part of the budget process as well?
Yeah, because it's money, I guess, part of the budget.
Is that being taken up with third reading, or do we need to take action?
Mr. Chairman, I believe in this case, the 271 is money that is not, and I'm going to ask staff to help me if I'm incorrect, but I believe that is money that is not committed at this point.
So you need an action.
But it can be moved to the bond part of the project because of the surplus and of the under budget that Mr. Manning referred to previously. So that staff is recommending, and I think the committee recommended, that we move that cost to the bond. So I believe that would be more appropriate to vote on tonight as opposed to waiting to the budget.
So the committee recommendation is to move that with the bonding, not the fiscal year budget, that council approved the small capital equipment needed for the new center to be funded in the amount of $278,161 from the existing bonded Decker Center fund.
All right, you heard the committee's recommendation. Discussion. Mr. Malinowski.
Yeah, Mr. McDonald, you're obviously reading something there that you have figures and all that. Can you just get me that tonight before I leave so I can review it and before I vote? Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. Malinowski. Mr. Pierce.
I am not real comfortable with where we are right now with this whole thing. For Thursday night, I want to make certain that that we have some documentation for council members about the staffing. I'm also concerned about voting on the capital list that the council members haven't really seen. They've seen an amount, but they haven't really seen the. I thought they. So we can't defer that vote until. I'm not making a motion. We can't defer that vote until Thursday night and vote on those things at the same time.
Mr. Pierce, I think you can. But again, I don't. Just for clarification, the bond or the capital fund that the 278 would be going to, it's not the county's overall bond that you'll be voting on Thursday night. This is this will be shifted to the capital fund for the project.
Yeah, I understand that, Mr. McDonald. But what I'm talking about is we're asking the council to vote on an item, a dollar amount, without knowing what that really is for.
Sure, you can defer, and we'll send out what I just shared with Mr. Malinowski. We can send that to you before Thursday. Yes, you can keep it.
Okay, you want to defer that to the budget?
Okay, I move that we defer this till Thursday night.
Second.
Motion on the table is for deferral. It's been properly second. Deferral is non-debatable. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Mr. Manning, that concludes your report?
That concludes my report,
Thank you,
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Manning. Next, we have the report of the Dirt Road Ad Hoc Committee. Ms. Dixon.
Mr. Chair, that item is for executive session.
Okay.
It's a contractual matter.
Thank you, Ms. Dixon. Next, we have the report of the Health Insurance Ad Hoc Committee. Mr. Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to refer everybody to page 152, please. We're not going to be voting tonight, but on this, but I want to make sure that everybody takes page 152 and page 153 home with them.
Homework.
Absolutely homework for third reading of the budget. The Insurance Committee, after deliberation with Mr. Hanna, who has worked tirelessly with Cigna, has managed to come up with a plan that will continue providing health insurance for our employees if they opt to do so at no cost. Now, what I am asking you to do is refer to page 152 and look at it as to what that will mean. Is the continuation of the no-cost health insurance program will require adjustments to the program. And if you have questions about that, since you just got this document or haven't had much chance to look at it, I would encourage you to either contact me or Mr. Hanna prior to third reading. What we've also will be asking you to do is to approve a second program that will permit employees at their discretion to select, which would be basically the same benefits package that they have now, but with a cost associated with that. So let me review that again. We're going to be asking you to, on third reading, to approve two plans. One would be continuation of the no-cost plan for employees with benefits that will change. And those benefits, then the changes are outlined in this document for you. And that's called the standard or the new standard plan. The other option employees will be permitted to choose, if they so desire, will be to continue their same level of benefits, but there will be a cost per pay period of that. So I would refer you to this document. I'll be glad to answer any questions. There will be no vote tonight. This is just for information.
Thank you, Mr. Pierce. Mr. Jeter.
Great. Mr. Pierce, so if you look at, I guess, items 1 and 2 is what you're referring to.
That's correct.
All right, so the first one, which is medical costs,
That's right.
that's for like doctor visits and stuff like that.
Right.
And then item 2.
Are your drug costs?
Just your drug costs.
Drug
Okay.
costs,
I just want
right.
to make sure, so you got the medical
Right.
and the drugs. All right.
Right. So just for example, if you keep the no-cost plan and you go to your doctor, you've been paying 20, you'll pay 35 for the no-cost plan. But you can, if you decide to purchase the continuation, you'll continue to pay 20. Same is true for the drugs. The drug tiers change, all right?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cheater. Mr. Manning, I forgot Malinowski. Mr. Manning.
I have one question in looking at the document, and I've expressed this concern in the past. So if we have an employee that's in a position, making, say, $25,000 a year, and we have one in a position that's making $100,000 a year, their premiums, co-pays, everything will be the same.
That's correct.
So proportionately, the plan will be more costly for those folks. The lesser income folks will have a higher impact in a regressive health plan. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manning.
That's not exactly true. No, on the zero cost plan, they won't pay any difference. It's zero. They get it for free. The standard plan. If they select to keep the same benefit level, yes, then what you just said is true.
So it wouldn't cost. I guess we can talk about this. So like if you stay on the standard, I'm sorry.
Just clarification, you just think,
clarification.
yeah.
So they stayed on the standard plan, only possible, it wouldn't cost them anything more, but their deductible and the copay may cost more.
That's correct.
That's correct.
That's correct. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jeter. Mr. Malinowski.
I'm good, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Malinowski. Any more discussion?
Again, this is for information only. We'll be voting on this Thursday night.
All right, Mr. Pierce, that concludes your report?
That concludes the report of the Insurance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Pierce. Next, we have citizens' input. Must pertain to items not on the agenda. Did Kennedy Smith opt out? That's all right. Did you cross this out for a reason?
I didn't cross it out.
Okay. All right.
That one was given to me.
Okay, all right. I have Mr. Forrester.
Yes.
I got you.
Sure.
Yeah.
You should have brought two.
I am Tony Forrester, and I live at 822 Woodside Avenue, Columbia, South Carolina. The last word was that I spoke to y'all was hash. I remember that. That she was, the lady that was staying with me was fixing me food that was not all hash, but hash-like food. And what I mean by that is food that's mixed together, that, you know, two or more food that's mixed together that sometimes you can't tell what you're eating. And this is what she was feeding me. And my coworker told me, said, you know, that woman got something on you and what kind of food you eating. And she told me not to eat any kind of spaghetti or anything like that. And I said, you know, you just pray over your food and you'll be all right. This time I realized that I had left the church for 7 years. And I was saying, you know, was this a punishment from God that I had left the church? And the lady that was still staying with me, we, after the man that I seen left the place, and we kind of got into it because I was saying, you're not concerned about what's going on around here? And we got in the fuss, and she called the police. The police came to my house, and I came to the door, And he said, "You been drinking?" I said, "Drinking?" He just grabbed me, threw me in the handcuffs. I said, "I'd take a blood test, alcohol test, or anything. I haven't been drinking." He said, "You've been drinking," and threw the handcuff, took me to jail, and I stayed overnight and got out. I came back and she apologized. I found out that she was taking notes. She was taking notes on me that everything I was doing in the house, was I going to the window? Was I going to the door? How many times a night I was going to the door? And she was doing this for a police officer who told her to get this for her. And by her writing this report on me, that they was gonna drop her probation. They was gonna clear her probation, which is clear. Not only did they clear her probation, they hired her to do something, to go somewhere in Virginia. And we kind of separated after then, but she said she had to because her probation was too much and she didn't want to go back to jail. So after that, then things started escalating at the house again. When she was at the house, things had kind of calmed down with the Bloods, but it seemed like the police said it's my time to take over. And after she left,
Mr. Chairman, I move for 2 more minutes.
and after she left, everything started escalating. Strange things started happening around the house. My feet started getting warm, getting real hot, and I got scared again, and I had a Sister Green, a friend of mine from the church that I was going to. I had stopped from 7 years. She started coming with me, and there was a shock was coming to my head, and I don't know how it was getting there, but I was feeling it. And I had got so scared that I was paying her $50 a night just to be with me, because I didn't know what was going on, but I knew something was going on. And then she got scared because she said something going on, but she didn't know what it was. And I started paying her $100 a night just to stay with me. And then I started going to hotel room. I went to a hotel room in West Columbia because I was trying to get away from whatever was happening. And there was a white guy and a white young boy, about 8 years old. The boy had some kind of power that I could look at him and things would start happening to me. And I'm telling you, I was just scared. So I said, I was decided I'm gonna leave South Carolina. I ended up losing my job. I was gonna leave South Carolina and I was gonna go back to Georgia where I was born. I went and bought a van. And the van that I bought I bought it from St. Andrew. And the guy that I met, he stayed right down the street. And I came from North Maine, and he had supposed to meet me there, and I was wondering why it took him so long to get there when I was coming from way over there to St. Andrew.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
The story is going to get more interesting. That's just the beginning. I'm still in the year 2005, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Forrest. All right, next we have executive session. Mr. Smith, if you can name those items for executive session, please.
Mr. Chairman and members of council, we have item 9A, Department of Revenue update. Item 9B, Pinewood Lake, that's a contractual matter. Under the chairman's report, 13A, that's a personnel matter. Item 25, Lower Richland Sewer Project land acquisition, that's a contractual matter. And item 32 is update of the dirt road management contract.
Okay. Chair, entertain a motion for executive session. We have a motion for executive session. It's been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. We're in executive session.